you set the stage and you go, all right, hey, thanks everybody. Do we still got an hour? Great. Hard stop at 2 o'clock. Fantastic. Here's a quick agenda of what I want to make sure that we go through, addresses what everybody said. And before we go though, I just want to go around and real quick from everybody on here, could you just tell me what's the one thing you want to get out of today's presentation? And I will go around one by one. Alex, what's the one thing you want to get out of today's presentation? Sarah, what's the one thing you want to, and I will literally write that down even on a Google Doc while it's shared, and I'll add that to the agenda. And then as I go through the presentation, I'll skip through the table stakes shit. Yeah, everybody has this, everybody has this. This is where we shine. And when I get to a point that I think is relevant to somebody said, this is my priority, that's when I show whatever I show. And I say, hey, Alex, you had said earlier that your main priority was blah, blah, blah. This is the component of our solution that addresses that. And this is how it does it. And then instead of saying dumb stuff like I always used to say and most sales reps do, like, does that make sense? Which is a stupid question to ask. It's actually an insulting question to ask. Hey, idiot, does that make sense? Did you figure out what I just put there, right? Their answer to that question never tells you whether or not it made sense, by the way. They're not going to say no. They're not going to admit they have no idea what you're talking about, right? And by the way, when I used to ask that question, does that make sense? 9 times out of 10, I was asking myself that question because I realized I had just droned on for like 10 to 15 minutes and I'd pause and be like, does that make sense? Because I don't think it did. But instead of saying, does that make sense? You go, could you explain to me how that compares to what you're doing now? Or could you explain to me how you see that fitting into your existing workflow? Because the way that you explain to me how it compares to what you're doing now or how you see it fitting into your existing workflow tells me everything I need to know on whether or not it made sense. And by the way, you could be zoned out through the entire presentation, but as soon as I pull you back in and I talk about the one thing you give a shit about, that's what you're going to remember. You can break the paradigm by sending it to them beforehand with the table stakes shit and be like, hey, here's our background, here's our history, here's our client list. Take a look at all that crap. I don't want to focus on that during the presentation. Here's a canned 10-minute demo based on some of the stuff that you told me. I just want to show you some of the highlights. So when we get together, we can get very specific into the details here. And then what do you want to get out of this? What do you want to get out of this? What do you want to get out of this?